Yes, this is Grant Traylor with HD Media. Question for Commissioner Gill. I know that there's been wording no later than July 1st, 2023, and it seems, especially in Old Dominion's release, they were discussing a move earlier. What would it take for the programs joining the Sun Belt Conference to institute this earlier? And for President Gilbert, President Smith, are there financial implications involved in that?
Yeah, I think from our perspective, we're just flexible and open. So we want to do what we can to support each one of the schools in the transition. So we know sometimes transitions can be hard when you're remaining in the other conference. And so we don't want to do anything, obviously, to undermine Conference USA in the current conference. But we also want to make sure that we're making plans so that there's a smooth transition depending on what timetable will be best for Marshall and any of other new members.
There could be some financial consequences of an early entry into the Sun Belt, but that would be dependent on the circumstances that would allow that to happen. So it would be difficult to project that. But yes, there could be, but there could also not be. So at this point, it's hard to know.
Yeah, I think, as President Gilbert just said, we're going to have to make sure we look at how things unfold with the current conference. Obviously, we're all excited to get to the Sun Belt Conference. But one of the things we talked about is how you choose to leave something will be remembered just as much as what you did while you were there. We want to make sure we honor Conference USA, make sure our student athletes, our coaches are prepared as we make the transition.
Good morning, gentlemen. Paul Swan, WRBC and Kindred Communications. We mentioned soccer earlier, and I know that was a big component in Marshall's decision. How much went into making sure that Marshall had a home for soccer, especially as we see that beautiful national championship trophy here?
It was extremely important. I mean, these moves are obviously, football and basketball centric at times, but for us, the men's soccer program was extremely important to us. I had Coach Grassi informed on this process early on and what the ramifications of each move would be. So I took his advice as we were going to, get through this process, and we felt comfortable with the direction that the Sun Belt was going, but it was very much right at the forefront of the decision making.
Tom Bragg with 24/7 Sports for Mr. O'Malley. Throughout this process, we heard about Marshall having good options. There were options on the table. What was it about the Sun Belt versus those other options that ultimately led you guys to go down this path?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing in the communication I had with Commissioner Gill, almost every conversation started with brand, right? And we were a great national brand and a great fit. And that was so great to hear, because it was about us, it was about our student athletes, and it was about our success, and it wasn't about our media market, and when you look at our success, the teams that left Conference USA to go to the American, I mean, in football, we were 28-11 against those teams. So, and this move to the Sun Belt was about that success and the success of all of our programs. And that was really enlightening, and refreshing to hear.
And for Commissioner Gill, back on the subject of soccer, you mentioned the league restarting it. Is there a timetable for that? Would it be 2023 when Marshall rejoins the league? And there's several current Sun Belt members that have soccer in other leagues now. Are those teams in the fold? Are they coming back into the league for soccer?
Yeah. So when we started, yes. So we'll have those teams that are kind of core members right now that have men's soccer kind of in that conference, and we'll start it. I'll say as soon as practicable. So certainly once everyone joins the league, we'll start it then. We'll probably file the paperwork in February, to be honest with you, just to make sure that we're ahead of the game in that regard. But we'll be ready to go as soon as all the men's soccer programs kind of transition in, and then the 3 core members that we have, those will kind of transition in as well. So.
Good morning, Justin Zimmer, WMUL. Just a quick question for Jeff O'Malley and both President Gilbert and President-elect Smith. How much of this deal was based on the new broadcast contract with ESPN, and just like the national brand and just the overall timeline of the deal before it was completed Friday?
It was very appealing to us. I mean, the feedback we get from our fans all the time is they can't find our games, and to be able to to click on one app on your phone or your iPad or, your smart TV and click on that ESPN icon and be able to find, every Marshall and every Sun Belt game was extremely appealing to us. And that contract runs through 2031, right, Commissioner?
2031.
2031. And it was a long-term deal, and it's something that's going to be on the table for quite some time.
So I mentioned stability, and having that stability of a long-term TV deal with ESPN was appealing to us, and I will reiterate with what Jeff said. Our fans were frustrated on finding our games, and this is going to make it much easier for them.
Really nothing to add. I would say it was one of the important principles that we had up on the whiteboard when we went through all the options. But I can also speak personally, having been in California for the last 15 years, I'm looking forward to watching a game on something other than Facebook, so it would be great.
Grant Traylor, HD Media again. Just clarifying something from the Board of Governors meeting earlier in which everything came about. The fees involved in moving to the Sun Belt Conference, both the exit fees and the entrance fees for going to the Sun Belt.
Well, the Sun Belt has waived the entry fee. There is an annual fee of $80,000 for membership, which is less than what we were paying previously. There is a exit fee that is a forgoance of the revenue distribution of this year and the next year. So those fees would be monies that we would not get from Conference USA, roughly $3 million.
Correct.
Courtney Hessler with the Herald Dispatch. What kind of implications will missing out on that $3 million have on the athletics program?
We'll have to tighten our belt a little bit. I mean, our budget, we did a great job with it. I think last year was a great training ground for us, trying to get through the pandemic, and we did so, very well. But we'll have to tighten our belt here the next 2 years, to make up that difference of $1.5 million. So.
Grant Traylor, HD Media again. Just for, this is sort of a little bit more general with Mr. Gilbert and Mr. Smith working together on this project and you all getting to know, how much has this transition sort of strengthened your all's bond moving forward as you all transition this university forward?
Well, I'll say that we had a pretty strong bond before, and certainly having Brad involved in the discussion was important, I thought, to look to the future, and we see this Sun Belt move as a look to the future. We think it's going to pay dividends many times over, and I wanted Brad involved so that he could have his fingerprints on this as well as mine as we go into the future.
And I would say that's the reason why we have such a strong bond. It has been a privilege to support President Gilbert for the 6 years he's been the president. We've had a very good friendship. We've done a lot of meetings together, traveled together. He's been to California. But these kinds of decisions are decisions, universities only have one president at a time, and he is our president. And he could have made this decision, but he actually asked to hold off so that I had the opportunity to weigh in, and that's the kind of character we're talking about, and that's why we have such a strong friendship.
Okay, at this point, we'll take questions from the Zoom. Again, for a reminder for those on the Zoom, please remember to use the raise hand function to ask your question. I'll call on you. And then please remember to mute yourselves when not asking the question. So we will start with Jim Workman. Jim, please unmute.
Thank you. Commissioner Gill, I have a question for you with Wally's activities, Sports Digest, and also the West Virginia Sports Writers Association. Will there be opportunities for Marshall University and Huntington, West Virginia to host Sun Belt Conference championship events?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now, most of our championships are played at neutral sites. So we only have 3 championships that are not played at neutral sites. So that would be football is hosted on campus, outdoor track is hosted on campus, and softball is hosted on campus. And we're actually working towards getting softball to a neutral site. So, so certainly in those 2 other sports, in football and outdoor track, but the other sports are neutral site championships.
Do we have any other questions from the Zoom? Hearing none, we will close today's proceeding. Again, reminder